He was huge. Ingrid Bergman's memoir acknowledges everything. The Swedish actress Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1915. The world she grew up in was very different from the bright lights of show business. Tragedies happened to her when she was young. Her mother died when she was 3 years old, and when she was 12, her beloved father, a photographer who had taught her early on to love pictures and theater, died. She was shy and orphaned, so she was raised by family. But the stage was where she found her release and her calling. Even though Bergman was quiet, she had a remarkable early talent for showing how she felt, and she was determined to become an actress. She went to school in Stockholm at the famous Royal Dramatic Theatre School, which had also taught the famous Swedish actress Greta Garbo. Her skill made her stand out right away. She soon started playing in Swedish movies, where her bright presence and natural acting style won her praise. One of her first big parts was in the 1936 Swedish movie Intermezzo, which made her famous all over the world when it was remade in Hollywood. When director David O. Selznick asked Bergman to come to Hollywood in 1939 to star in the American version of Intermezzo, she did. With Leslie Howard, a love story. She was very different from the more stylized stars of the time because of her soft, natural beauty, gentle accent, and honest acts. People were glued to the screen, and Ingrid quickly became one of the most sought-after actors in the early 1940s. In a flash, she rose to fame. She appeared in a number of classic movies over the next few years that showed off her range and emotional depth. One of her most famous roles was as Ilse Lund in Casablanca, 1942, which starred Humphrey Bogart. The movie is still one of the most popular in movie history, and Bergman's performance as a woman pulled between love and duty is a big part of why. People all over the world will always remember her beautiful face, especially in the touching scenes at Rick's Cafe. Bergman's work during this time was praised by many and nominated for several Academy Awards. In 1944, she won her first Academy Award for Best Actress for her unforgettable role as a woman who slowly starts to think she is going crazy in Gaslight. She was very good at acting because she brought a lot of psychic depth and vulnerability to the part. After this, she had other memorable parts, such as opposite Cary Grant in Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, 1946, a complicated story of love, betrayal, and espionage that showed she could rule the screen with grace and emotional truth. She went with her gut and moved to Italy, where she worked with Rossellini on a number of neo-realism movies. Some of them are Journey to Italy, Stromboli, 1950, and Europa 51. At the time, these movies weren't big hits, but they were later praised for how they changed modern movies and how daringly they tried new things. Bergman got her second Academy Award for her role in Anastasia in 1956, which marked her triumphant return to American movies after living abroad for a while. This time, a symbolic welcome back from the business world that had turned its back on her before. She kept acting in movies in both Europe and the United States, showing that she was one of the most versatile and brave actors of her time. People also liked her work on stage and in TV shows, like the Emmy-winning role she played as Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in A Woman Called Golda. Ingrid Bergman won 3 of the 7 Academy Awards she was nominated for over the course of her career. She also won 2 Emmy Awards, a Tony Award, and many other awards. She worked with some of the best directors of the 20th century, such as Alfred Hitchcock, Ingmar Bergman, No Relation, and Sidney Lumet, and could speak 5 languages. But more than the praise, it was her clear earnestness and quiet dignity that made people of all ages love her. Ingrid Bergman was a brave woman who defied the narrow expectations of her time. She lived a brilliant life and played brilliantly. She never gave up her ethics or her dedication to her work, even when scandal threatened to overshadow her achievements. In her personal life, she went through deep highs and painful lows, weddings and divorces, becoming a mother and getting sick. It was amazing how calm she was in front of all of them. The famous Swedish actress Ingrid Bergman married Petter Aron Lindström for the first time in 1937. Bergman is known for being beautiful and talented. Lindström was a respected neurosurgeon, which was very different from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood and foreign film which Bergman lived in. At first, their marriage seemed steady and normal, but Bergman's rising fame and her growing involvement in the movie business made it more complicated. Ingrid and Petter Lindström had a daughter together. Pia Lindström was born in 1938 and went on to become a famous TV reporter and news anchor. Even though they seemed like a normal family, the couple's relationship finally got worse. Mostly because of how hard Bergman's job was and the personal problems she had as she got older and more famous around the world. It was a big change in Ingrid Bergman's life when she started dating the Italian director Roberto Rossellini in the late 1940s. Rossellini was a famous and important director, best known for being one of the founders of Italian neo-realism in film. While Bergman was still married to Lindström, they started seeing each other. This caused a lot of gossip at the time. This relationship was intense and controversial because it went against what most people think about marriage and loyalty. The affair was made public after Bergman had Rossellini's daughter, Isabella Rossellini, in 1952. The birth of this child caused a big rift in Bergman's personal life and sparked a lot of attention from the media and public discussion. Ingrid Bergman and Petter Lindström were married for 13 years before Isabella was born. In 1950, they got a divorce. Soon after, Bergman and Rossellini made their relationship official by getting married in Mexico. When they got married, Bergman's life changed in a big way, one that is closely connected to Rossellini's film style and Italian culture. Roberto Ingmar Rossellini was born in 1954, and Isotta Ingrid Rossellini was born in 1956. They had 2 more children together. Even though they worked together on creative projects and their family grew, they had a lot of problems in their marriage, such as job stress, cultural differences, and a lot of public attention after their scandal. In the end, Bergman and Rossellini got a divorce in 1957, ending a complicated and important relationship that had changed both of their personal and professional lives. It was only a year after her split from Rossellini that Ingrid Bergman married Lars Schmidt, a Swedish businessman and producer in the theater world. Schmidt was a big part of getting Bergman's plays seen in Europe, and their relationship gave the actress a more safe and private place to live after years of public trouble. From 1958 to 1975, they were married for almost 20 years. During this time, Bergman balanced her work life with her personal life. Schmidt's support came from his love of the arts and his experience running theater shows. Their relationship ended in divorce, though, as many long-term marriages do. This was the end of another chapter in Bergman's difficult and multifaceted personal life. When Ingrid Bergman wrote her autobiography, she didn't just talk about how tall Gregory Peck was, though that was memorable in and of itself. She wrote, "He was huge," and the word meant a lot more than just a comment on how tall he was. Built with big shoulders, it was a statement full of awe, respect, and something almost confessional, as if she were remembering a presence that had once been too much for her. Gregory Peck was the perfect example of a classic Hollywood man when it came to looks. His commanding height made him stand out from most of his peers, and he often left a lasting impact on both audiences and co-stars. As Bergman worked with stars like Humphrey Bogart and Cary Grant on sets all over the world, she was still struck by how strong Peck was as soon as he walked onto a set. She said that he didn't enter a room, he filled it. His body was like a statue. It looked almost Roman in its grandeur, but it never scared people. His stance showed that he was being gentle. He moved with a grace that tempered the rough strength that his body showed. But when Bergman said massive, she also meant Peck's soul, his moral compass, his quiet determination, and the deep honesty with which he lived his life. All of these things added up to something huge. The way he spoke made her feel like the air itself was listening, she remembered. She talked about how he could make you feel like your words were important, even when they weren't related to anything important. She told him you couldn't lie to him. He looked right through you, but not in a way that made you feel vulnerable. Instead, it made you want to be honest. When they worked together, both on and off screen, there was a strong sense of professional respect and strong chemistry that they never said a word about. Bergman said there were times when I would look at him across the stage and forget my lines, not because I was afraid, but because I was so moved by the man in front of me. She said it wasn't lust, but rather awe, a surrendering of the heart to someone who seemed to be made from something eternal. Bergman also talked about how Peck handled his fame with a humility that really moved her. Gregory stayed put in a world where being vain was a skill for survival. She wrote that he never had to be the loudest person in the room. A lot of the time, his silence said more than 100 words. He did his jobs well, not because he wanted the praise, but because he saw it as a way to tell the truth, even if it was made up. He believed in the kind of goodness that you fight for, scene after scene, not the kind that is easy to believe in. Bergman wrote in her autobiography that working with Gregory Peck pushed her, made her feel seen, and changed her in the end. She thought about how he had affected her as a person, as well as an actress. He helped me remember that being great isn't about being perfect, but about being present. Gregory was there in the fullest, most beautiful sense of the word. She wasn't just making up a phrase or a tabloid story when she wrote, "He was huge." And it was a summary of a guy who affected her in more ways than she thought possible. Physically, emotionally, artistically, and spiritually. The early 1970s saw the London run of The Constant Wife. During that time, Ingrid Bergman's life took a dramatic and unexpected turn. During this time, she was still ruling stages with the same charisma that had made her famous in movies. But she noticed a strange physical change, a hard lump under her left breast. Even though she had a lot of performances coming up, Bergman, who is known for being very disciplined and paying close attention to details, moved quickly. On June 15, 1974, she had surgery at a private clinic in London to get rid of the lump. Even though the surgery wasn't very public, it was the start of a long and hard battle with breast cancer that she chose to fight with grace, courage, and a strong dedication to her work. The cancer had not left her. Years later, Bergman felt the same scary lump while shooting Autumn Sonata, a movie that would become one of her most powerful and well-reviewed roles. Because of this second finding, she had to go back to London right away and have another surgery. The experience had a lot of meaning. Not related to Ingmar Bergman, she gave one of the most honest, complex, and open performances of her career, while her body was fighting a disease that would kill it. The part seemed to reflect the emotional struggles she was going through in real life. Bergman refused to let her illness define or limit her. So she started training right away for Waters of the Moon, a 1978 TV adaptation. This showed how strong she was and how hard she worked. Bergman kept taking on important parts, including one of the most important of her late career, even though her illness was getting worse. An actress played Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in the 1981 TV movie A Woman Called Golda. It was a brave and deeply moving move. Bergman was weak now, and treatments and time had changed her face, but she played Meir with great power and honor. It was hard work filming. It took a huge toll on her health, but she finished the job with the usual level of professionalism. The performance earned her Emmy and Golden Globe Awards after she died, which was the last confirmation of her huge impact on the theater world. After this, Bergman stopped performing in public and went to her flat in London, which was in the fancy Cheney Gardens neighborhood near the River Thames. The place was known for having creative people living there and a peaceful feel, but for Bergman, it turned into a place of being alone and struggling in silence. That's where she started getting regular medication. The star, who used to be so bright and had millions of fans, was now dealing with the illness with quiet strength. Many times, paparazzi and fans camped out on the sidewalk outside her building to get a glimpse of the famous actor. She dodged the front window because she knew they were there and didn't want them to see how weak she was. Her body was now badly hurt by the illness. The cancer had spread to her spine and caused her 12th vertebra to collapse. This hurt a lot and made it hard for her to move around. Her right lung was no longer working at all, and only a small part of her left lung was still working. Even though things were very bad, she never gave up her inner power. Ingrid Bergman died in London just after midnight on August 29, 1982. It was a sad day for her because it was her 67th birthday. She died peacefully with the people she loved around her. Lars Schmidt, her ex-husband, and a Swedish theater director with whom she had stayed friendly and loving, was at her bedside with 3 other people. They had shared a final toast in her honor that night, just hours before she died. It was a private and symbolic act, full of bittersweet celebration and approaching loss. A copy of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's thoughtful short story, The Little Prince, was next to her bed. The book was open to a page near the end. Bergman loved this book because it was about innocence, loss, and the hidden nature of things. Maybe one last quiet thought about her soul's trip. The service to remember her was held in October at London's famous St. Martin in the Fields Church. There were 1,200 mourners from all over the world who came to the serious and elegant event. One of her 3 children, Isabella Rossellini, who was already making a name for herself in movies, was there, along with the rest of the Rossellini family and cousins who had flown in from Sweden. A very large group of famous people from the performing arts came to the service to say goodbye to one of their greatest stars. Liv Ullmann, Sir John Gielgud, Dame Wendy Hiller, Birgit Nilsson, and Joss Ackland, all well-known actors and longtime co-workers, were all there and paid their respects in their own quiet ways. During the service, parts of Shakespeare were read out loud, in line with Bergman's background in traditional theater. There were songs like This Old Man, a playful tune that was widely used in The Inn of the Sixth Happiness, and As Time Goes By, a hauntingly nostalgic song that Bergman's voice immortalized in Casablanca, and that seemed to sum up her life and career. Justin Daly, her grandson, later talked about how crazy and emotional that day was. Hundreds of photographers rushed the scene, jostling for position and flashing their cameras at people who were trying to cry. In the chaos, Daly remembered getting hit in the head by a camera. But in the middle of his pain and confusion, he had a sudden, deep realization. Ingrid Bergman was no longer just his grandma. He said, "I could tell she wasn't just my grandmother in the middle of all this chaos. She was part of everyone else. She was a part of everything." Millions of people felt the same way. She was also a mother, grandmother, and friend, among other things. Her beauty, bravery, and kindness made her an icon that people all over the world knew and loved.